Hey everyone, welcome to the Rich Praytor podcast. Thank you for tuning in, and today we are going to be talking with Daren Streblow. Daren Streblow has been a friend of mine for, it's pushing 20 years probably this year, and I met Daren at one of our first Christian comedy festivals, and the guy is probably the most brilliant comedian as far as joke writing and delivery and just the insights of life and making people laugh. And I just love the guy to death. And we've had a fun relationship over the years. He's just a dear friend of mine. And he's not only a comedian, but he's also a radio host. And he actually has a nationally syndicated radio program called the Daren Streblow Comedy Show, and they actually offer a free app. If you either go to the iPhone or Android store, you can download the app absolutely free and listen to his radio show anytime you want to. This podcast is brought to you by oilyflakes.com. It's the world's only video-on-demand share app that focuses on essential oil training and education. If you know, our production company did a documentary called Ancient Secrets of Essential Oils, and we springboarded off that documentary. And what we've done is created hundreds of hours of essential oil training for you to either learn or to share essential oil training with other people. You can use the promo code FIRSTMONTH1. So that's it's all one word, and it's actually like the numerical 1. So it's first month and then the number 1. All lowercase, no spaces. First month 1. Use that promo code to get your first month for just $1, so you can experience and check out everything that Oily Flakes has to offer. Okay, enough with the shameless promotion. Now, without further ado, our conversation with Mr. Daren Streblow. Welcome, Daren Streblow. How you doing, man?
Hey, I'm doing good. Nice to be on your show.
Well, thank you for being. I appreciate you taking the time out, man. I've been on your show quite a bit, and I love it. And you're like, I'm intimidated because you're like the radio guy, and I'm just like, I'm the podcast guy.
Not intimidating. I'm just kind of this. It's funny that I actually have a radio show because, I got my feet wet in radio in the tiny college town of Duluth, Minnesota back in like 1987. And, that's a big market. I mean, drive time is about 3.5 minutes long, and, that's how long it takes people to get home from the paper mill or whatever. And, so I did the afternoon show there. I wasn't even the morning guy, but I did that for 10 years, and the guy who mentored me, John Eng and some of the other folks in my orbit there, Paul Harkness and Gordy Mesdall and all these guys that I work with, and super eloquent people. Edna Blake was another person there. They're all eloquent. They could just talk and talk and talk and talk and talk. And believe it or not, Rich, I'm more of a stammerer because I'm such an introvert, so I can't just talk forever. The reason I can do a radio show is because of my editing software, and I can edit out all my out of it. So I'm not eloquent, but I love radio because it's such a kind of a close and personal medium, because you feel like you're just kind of hanging out with the person, and I like that. And I want people who are on my show to kind of feel like that first time you went to a comedy show or a comedy club or something, and someone's sitting next to you and whispering in your ear. It's like, okay, this is what's happening now, and I know this person. This person is into this and that, and they collect old cars and stuff. Oh yeah, and they've got faith and all this kind of stuff. And you're gonna love this joke. I kind of feel like we're just going together to the comedy show and enjoying it together and laughing and kind of healing. That's kind of what I want the show to be. So, yeah.
Nice.
Yeah.
Were you surprised at how popular? Because you did radio before. Or during the beginning of the internet or the popularity of it, were you surprised that it's kind of come full circle where podcasts and radio shows are making a huge comeback now?
I never would have guessed route that audiophiles take to get to people. I never would have guessed that in a million years. I'm not surprised that it's still kind of the big media out there, or medium rather, because of the closeness factor. I mean, I just saw, I don't know who put it out, but they were looking at what is the number one source of media out there, television, radio, internet, whatever. And radio's still on top. You wouldn't think that because, advertising took a big hit after television exploded into cable and onto the internet and stuff.
Yeah.
But it's still the number one thing that people turn to. And I'm not sure why, but it sure feels good. It's kind of a fun place to really just hang out. So, I'm not surprised that it is still on top, but I am surprised at the fact that you record something, it sits on a server farm somewhere in Poughkeepsie and is downloaded whenever somebody wants it on their roaming cellular device the size of a pack of cards and can listen to it forever. Although our show is still on terrestrial radio, too. I think we're in about I think at least 130 markets now, even more. So
wow, you're like
going
big
out
time.
the traditional way. Well, I wouldn't say that's big time. I think big time is a lot more than that, but it's fun to be, literally across the country and, go and do a comedy show somewhere and afterwards say, yeah, I've been listening to you for years on WXYZ, or something like that. That's really fun for me because I always grew up a big fan of radio. I used to wait up late at night. I was always the person that did papers and stuff last minute for high school, and I would use that excuse to stay up late, and then I'd listen to Larry King live really late at night. I think, because talk radio back then was kind of in its infancy, and I just listened to his, because, he had a show like nobody else, just guests and talking, and, there was just such a live, personal, connective feel to that. I'll never forget the late night, early morning hours procrastinating, listening to Larry King. It was kind of special for me.
Well, most high school boys, I would imagine they're not like staying up late listening to Larry King. They're like,
no, I was, as they say, the king of uncool. I think that's what I was crowned as. My friends at school were watching Friday night videos on NBC. I think that was the big deal, and I was listening to Larry King into that. That's why I turned out so cool myself.
Right. My parents bought me one of those record players, and I would listen to vinyl, like just people's storytelling, those little mini vinyls, and it was amazing just how much I loved it. And you just sit there and put it on, and I would just like lean back and close my eyes and visualize the story. And it's. I think you're right. I think it's the powerful being able to, like, if you're telling a story like in that form, being able to create your own visuals, but then also, having a conversation between someone you really get to understand and get to know them kind of like in an intimate way and find out their ideas and things like that.
Yeah, there's a loveliness to it, and it's fun. I was thinking of vinyl when you talking when I started in '87. Vinyl was still a thing in radio because CDs really hadn't taken off quite yet.
Yeah.
And so to get the best sound, the best uncompressed sound out there, vinyl was the key. And so we would queue up records when we come in, and there was always a very good chance that once or twice a shift you would do it wrong, and you'd put the needle on the record where you wanted to start. And if you didn't turn it back and you just hit play, the turntable would have to come up to speed. So you'd be like, and here's so-and-so with such and such. Which made you just go, oh, I'm going to get a call from my supervisor now. I do that every week and think, I have no talent in this business. I think I'll do it for the rest of my life. So that was kind of the vinyl thing. But by the time I left, it was all getting into audio vault and computers. If you go to a radio station now, it's all computers. They don't even do anything. They just sit there and read off their screens, which makes them able to be more creative, I think. So pretty cool.
Yeah. So where'd you grow up at? So are you originally from Duluth?
Yeah, I was born in Ely, Minnesota, Ely, which is up near the Canadian border in Minnesota. My whole world was pine trees and lakes, and I kind of thought that's what the whole world looked like. My dad was a teacher during the school year, and in the summers he was a guide up into the boundary waters of Canada and into the Quetico State Park into Canada.
Oh, wow.
Things like that. So my earliest memories were sitting in the middle of a canoe, paddling furiously, probably actually working against my dad, paddling in the front. That was my whole world. And then we moved to the big city of Duluth when I was probably in the first or second grade. And I've lived around here ever since in Minnesota. I complain about the cold all the time, but I just never seem to leave here. I just I like the trees, and I must like it. I think I would miss it if I left, but I must really like it. Kind of a cool place. But so that's where I grew up in the cold, wearing moon boots in the 80s. I wore moon boots well past moon boots cool factor, which was about a week and a half. I wore them for 8 years, and they get soaking wet, and I get pneumonia, and I just could never. So when Napoleon Dynamite came about, I thought that was me up there on screen. So I really hooked into that movie. But you were going to say though.
Oh, I was just going to say that I used to have several pairs, and I think I still have a pair at my parents' house in Texas. Like it's still there.
You wore moon boots in Texas. I can't imagine why.
Well, we were in Germany because my dad was military, but
right.
My mom keeps everything, so I think I still got it. I remember,
That's
if
great.
you would poke a hole in it, it would just vaporize. Like the whole thing would just
It just kind of deteriorate and turn to paper, which I think is what they were made out of, and we
zero support. Remember that?
It's just stupid, and I just loved those things, and I think I finally took them off because I was some pretty girl on the bus who started just mocking me for wearing moon boots, and I thought, the pretty girls noticed, and then that had to stop, so I stopped.
Oh, pretty girls are dumb. No, I was kidding.
Oh, no. I'll bet she knows what she's talking about. So that was the end of my moon boots.
Then how'd you get into radio? What was were you going to do the college thing, high school, then go to college, and then, were you
it was more
did you have
about,
aspirations?
Well, I actually had no idea what to do with my life, and then my mother was very much into radio, Christian radio specifically, and she said, have you ever thought of doing a part-time job in Christian radio? And I thought, I don't even know what that would look like. He said, well, you'd be an announcer and you'd work on the weekends. And I said, yeah, that sounds kind of fun. And our pastor at the time was the morning drive guy at the radio station.
Oh, wow.
And I just said, do you happen to have a part-time position? He said, well, funny you should say that. And he talked just like that. We do have an opening. Would you like to read for it? So I went to the studio and I got out a piece of paper and I read the news. And I think there was a news story out of Willow River, Minnesota, which I still have a hard time saying, but I couldn't say Willow River. I would say Willow River. And I tried to say it 8 to 10 different times before I bailed and crumpled into the fetal position next to the microphone. And they went, oh, you're hired. So I don't know what happened there. So they have tapes of that they trot out every once in a while. They have a tape of me the first day I was on the air, and I literally hyperventilated when they opened the mic. I was a mess. I was just like, take me to the hospital, hyperventilating. And then they've got a lot of tapes that they bring out. That we just had a kind of I guess it was a reunion like 3 weeks ago. We all met at the radio station, all of us folks who used to work there at that time, and they brought out a recording of a thing we did. I heard about it from WCCO out of the Twin Cities. It was a fake parade, and I don't know if it was original to them or if they copied the idea, but on April the 1st, they would do a fake parade on the radio and, talk about all the floats going by. And then people would, oh, where's this? I got to go see it. So we did it in our town, and the mayor got involved, television personalities, and we were making up stuff like we had beautiful sound effects library, and we had snowmobiles going up and down. It sounded like they were flying right by the microphone. And Gordy Mesdall, my friend from back then, was just beautiful at improv, and he was just like, yes, these snowmobiles. Now, there's no snow on the ground, obviously, but they have these carbon-tipped runners on them that allow them to run all season long, and it's just kind of an amazing thing. And then we had this whole thing of it was like it was a sound effect for fireworks, at the 4th of July, and this was like at 4:30 in the afternoon. It was brilliant daylight, and we had these going off, and they said, they're special, newly designed daytime fireworks, fresh from the best mines in China. They blow up black against the blue sky. It's just so beautiful. I've never seen anything like. And apparently we had listeners just tearing up and down the main drag trying to find this fireworks display. Yeah. And we never said April Fool's Day. At the end of it, I think we all said something like, it's kind of an odd day, isn't it? Yeah, just kind of a strange kind of day. And people would they'd call in days later saying, we were eating dinner, saying, I looked all over for that thing, and man, it's just so weird that they had a parade on April 1st. And they'd get it, and they'd call and read me out and laugh. And so they had a whole tape of that, and they played it during our get-together, and it was kind of a fun.
Wow.
So back then I was doing kind of comedy-related stuff, but I didn't really I didn't know that I was a comic until later. But that was kind of a fun outlet for me to go on the radio and make people laugh. And even though my comedy chops were completely rough, and from doing stand-up, it just takes a while to develop an understanding of what really makes people laugh.
Right.
And I didn't have it back then. I was just rough, but it was still there, and people were laughing and stuff like that. So it was a nice outlet when I first started doing stuff for the public. So.
And you made the when did you make the transition from radio to like I want to take this live?
Well, I was
stand up.
It was kind of a spiritual thing for me, and I think it was just God in His mercy, just saying, He doesn't really understand what He is, and so I was doing radio and realized that I was kind of at a level in radio. I like being in the afternoons. I didn't want to do a morning show because I hate mornings, and
right.
and I didn't think I would be a managerial type for a radio station. So I felt like, man, I'm almost at the top of where I want to be in this profession, and I'm 24 years old or 25 years old, and it was confusing, but I felt, God just kind of told me, this is, I want you to do comedy, and I was like, oh, okay, that makes sense. I guess I'm the guy who can't be at the restaurant without trying to make everybody laugh, or trying to make a fool out of myself at every social get together. So this will probably work pretty good. And so I went on to start going to comedy clubs. I was first going to churches, which anyone who's not in the Christian world would think was kind of an odd place to do stand-up, and it is. But, I would beg youth groups to go and perform in front of their kids, and they're like, we don't have to pay you, do we? Like, no, I'm just practicing. And I do like a half hour, and maybe one or two things would be funny. And I'd keep those things, and then I'd do another half hour, and, another two things would be funny, and I'd keep those. And I just kept building. until I thought I had a pretty good 40-minute set. And then I met Brad Stein, the comedian, and he said, "You're never going to be really funny unless you do open mics at a real comedy club." And I was like, "Well, I'll bet I'll be fine." So I started driving down to Acme Comedy Club, which is about 2.5-hour drive for me, to do 3-minute sets at Acme. And I also at that time was going down to Mall of America. They had a comedy club there called Knuckleheads, and I'd drive down there regularly and just do these 3-minute sets, and found out very quickly that nobody thought I was funny. And then, and just reevaluate my life all the way home, and then kind of tweak stuff. But after doing that for about 3-4 years, you really do learn the mechanics of joke building and presentation and stuff like that. So I really feel like that was kind of Acme was kind of my alma mater for comedy.
Yeah.
And they started hiring me. Excuse me. They started hiring me for stuff at the comedy club, and I was doing clean comedy like I do now, and so they could put me in front of comics that wanted a cleaner comic to come in and do stuff, and that was kind of an advantage to me. And I learned how to MC, learned how to middle, and then by the time I left, I was headlining. And although I don't do a lot of comedy club stuff now, maybe 1 week a year at the most, but it's mostly just fundraisers, ticketed shows, different things. But I've loved it. It's been really fun. That's how I met you, actually, going out there and doing comedy stuff. So
that's right. I think the first time I ever saw you was on a I forgot, a VHS tape. It was you doing your set somewhere on stage in front of a huge audience. I can't remember what it was. This was like 2000, 2001, something like that. Maybe even earlier than that.
Interesting.
You did your famous the paper mill bit, which was brilliant, and I'd never I remember I was in El Paso, and then I wanted to do stand up, and then I kind of wanted to do it because I saw Mike Warnke do it, and I just thought this is what I want to do, so I moved to California, and then I thought there was only like Shonda, Ken Davis, and like Naz. I thought those were like the only real, I had no clue that there was other people out there.
Right.
And it was fascinating to learn that, but you were out there, and it seemed like, everyone has their own little story of being isolated and, trying to figure it all out. And then we all came together at some point. So that was fascinating.
Yeah, it is. It is. So Warnke was a big influence for you.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
I saw him, late 80s, and it was
live?
packed. It was probably 1,400 people in a small. I mean, and he destroyed. He was he was the guy back then. And I watched that, and I never thought I'd love to do that. I left going, that was really funny, and it never even occurred to me to do it. Ever. I'm trying to think of the first time I really saw stand up when I was thinking about doing it.
Who's your favorite comedian?
Right now?
Maybe who are some of your influences?
Sinbad.
Oh, really? There you go.
Oh, yeah.
I love Sinbad.
And you would never look at my act and think, I bet Sinbad influenced him. He was a huge influence for me. Brian Regan, to a certain degree, but I only knew Brian from some audio recordings, and man, I loved that. Loved the way he sells jokes, with his voice and with the way he moves, and his subject matter was so beautiful. For another big influence, I'm trying to think of all of them here. I don't know. I just had a lot. I just enjoyed laughing, and so when I'd run across this in my little world in Minnesota, I'd kind of hang on to it like a treasure. And when I started doing it, I tried to imitate it. Brad Stein, when I first met him, was doing more of the manic angry. Man, I'd never laughed so hard when I saw his stuff, and then I tried to be him, and he eventually said, "You need to stop. You're not anything
scared.
like me. You stammer. You talk slow. You're nothing like me." And he really kind of coached me to be myself, which I'll always appreciate, because, as you know, that's really when you connect with other people, is when you're kind of being yourself, and up on stage. And so a lot of the radio training that I did, and a lot of the stage stuff that I did in the past, I kind of had to put on the shelf and really kind of be a little more real on stage, as much as you can be doing stand-up, because you're up there spinning yarns and telling jokes and stuff like that. But if they feel like you have this contrived stage presence, it's not necessarily off-putting, but they just don't relax and believe it. They don't really connect with you. So I had to go from radio guy to kind of like I'm talking now, just kind of me, and that really made a big difference, I think. So.
Huh, that's interesting. Yeah, I think one of the best pieces of advice I ever got was all you're doing is having a conversation with the audience.
Yeah,
once I realized that, instead of trying to make them laugh or tell a joke, it was more of, here, let's have a conversation, we'll draw them in, and then they're going to laugh anyway.
I saw Steve Geyer live.
Oh, yeah.
Sometime early I thought it was the 90s, but I'm probably getting my dates wrong. But afterward I said, I think I'm going, it would have been the 90s, because I was thinking about going to comedy, and I said, hey, I'm thinking about going to comedy. Do you have any advice for me? And Steve said, well, I'm taking this advice from, somebody from The Tonight Show, who said to him, comedy is like going on a big bus ride together. We're all going on a big bus ride. He said, so bring your people on a big bus ride. And I left going, wow, I have no idea what that means. I am so confused.
I don't have a license.
But now I see, after doing it for, I guess I've been in it 20 years. Yeah, you're just trying to all have a shared experience. That's why when things happen during the show, like you talk to somebody and something happens, or somebody drops something, you make a comment and everybody laughs. Those are the things that people remember, because it's that shared kind of thing we all did together. And that's true. I mean, it's people are looking for kind of the experience of doing all this together. And it's good advice, but it's hard for a young performer to wrap their head around that.
It is, I don't think I've been doing comedy since I started 97, 98, and it's just been within the last 5 years that it's actually I've understood that concept. And so
there's so much stuff in comedy that you just don't get until you've done it forever. You have to get on stage a bunch of stuff, and you got to fail a bunch of times, and you can't fail so much that you get a reputation for being a failure out there. You can only fail once or twice in a show and try to cover it up, and then eventually you kind of stop failing very often at all. But you have to learn how to take risks, and you have to learn your demeanor. You have to learn the way to use your voice. You have to learn so many things that you can't just read a script and do, and so that's why a lot of the comedians that are uber famous, you don't hear about them for the first 30 years of their comedy life, because they're still learning. It's one of those crafts that just takes a really long time. That 30-year mark I think is important, and I'm 10 years away from that yet, so I got a lot of learning to do. So
me too, exactly. So what do you do as far as I see. Here's how's your sister? I haven't talked to her in a while.
Danielle. Yes.
I remember her.
Yes. And I have two sisters. I have Dana.
Oh, yeah.
And Danielle.
The one who was in California.
That's right. She lived in California, and you met her. Dana lives about 2 hours from me. Dana homeschools, so I haven't actually seen Dana since the 90s. So I wish her well. Danielle is married, lives in Montana, and has 2 strapping boys. She's married to a combination of Paul Bunyan and the Lord Jesus. He looks like a strapping version of our Savior, and he puts out fires, and he's brilliant. Literally forest fires, and he can fix anything, and he's just everything as a man that I'm not. So I don't know how to talk to him, but Luke is kind of an amazing person, and she's a lot like me in that she's kind of a artsy sort of, but she's super funny, and Dana and I both comment on we can't keep up with her as funny. I just can't get her on stage, but she's and she's hysterical. She's starting to do some blogging and stuff and putting videos up, and she's just hysterical. So yeah, she's doing real well.
Oh, that's good. And your family? I forgot how many kids you have.
I have 4. My oldest is 21.
Good night. Are you serious? Wow.
I know. Isn't that crazy? And he's funny. He's done some stand-up. And I don't know if he's going to pursue it, but he can do it. He's very funny. He's opened for me for a couple of tours, and he's my producer for my radio show. So
nice.
He can make gorgeous videos. He's done that professionally now. He can produce radio. He can be in front of the camera. He can be off camera. He's just brilliant. I call him the marvelous Ethan Streblow, my producer. So he's doing great.
Oh, wow.
And all my kids very, very creative, which is kind of fun. I think they get it from their mother. So
yeah. I had my son. I take my kids to my shows if it's locally, and I had to get on my son because he would heckle me during my show. And I don't know where he got it from, but I would be talking. He's like, "That's not true. You suck." Like this horrible. I'm like, "What are you doing?"
That must be a good thing. I think I had an 8-year-old that did that at one of my shows. Like, none of this is true, people. This is all exaggerated. None of it. I am ashamed of it. I'm like, it's supposed to be fun. Let's just have fun. But they all love being up on stage. All of them.
That's such a good.
Even my most introverted boy would really want to get up there and just kind of stand in front of everybody, and which is fun. I like that.
Here's a random story, and you can appreciate this. I took London, my son. He was 2 or 3 at the time. I can't remember. And so I went to the church. They had like this comedy night. It's like, I don't know, 600-700 people in the thing, and all the kids, like the church, what they would do is they would set up the lobby so the kids could hang out there, and the parents would come into the sanctuary and enjoy the show. And so all the kids are kind of like doing a free for all out there. And so they're like, "Oh yeah, let London go." I'm like, "Okay, that's fine." So I'm halfway through the show, probably, I don't know, whatever, 20, 30 minutes into the show, and I'm talking about my kids, whatever, and London, who's still in diapers, busts through the door and runs down the aisle, and he's saying, "I pooped in my pants," like he just wants someone to change them, like right, and then. And everyone thought it was a part of the act.
Oh, there's Dad up there. I'll have him do it.
I got him. Yeah, right up there. He's running
free.
down the aisle. And he's just like, his pants are on his ankles, like, "Daddy," and all this stuff. And everyone thought it was like this elaborate joke. I'm like, no. And so I was like, "It's just not a joke." It's probably like 60 moms stood up and just like bum rushed him, took him back out, cleaned him up, and then came back in. And there was like a big applause break for the moms. It was just ridiculous.
That's pretty sweet. Yeah,
I tried to recreate that, but it never works.
Yeah, there's just some things you can't repeat. I had a similar situation. I was doing some kind of a tour date in Iowa, and Ethan, 21, was 4, and was too restless to sit through the show, so my wife brought him. It was at a high school at one of their auditoriums. So he found his way into some kind of a office room. He said, "You need to get out of there," and he slammed the door, which triggered the fire alarm, which went off during my show. And it wasn't just like a fire alarm. It was not just an alarm. It was the lights were flashing, and it was buzzing, and then a voice would come on, which was something unintelligible, like, "Everyone is going to die. Everyone is going to..." And it just kind of kept saying that over and over again, in my mind anyway. And we had to wait I had to kind of improv over that for 3-4 minutes. And then we've kind of figured it out. And then afterward, he ran up to me and I threw him on my shoulders and I was talking to him, so he was on my shoulders and he got bored and he reached down with his 2 fingers and put them in my nostrils and yanked as hard as he could, and blood was streaming down my face. I just thought, I do this to help my children, but they're not helping back. There's no give and take there. It's just
good.
It's all me. So yeah, it's okay because I talk about them in my show, and I suppose you got to get beat up every once in a while to kind of even the score. But
yeah, that's so funny. That's amazing. So, what are some of the big projects you got going on now? As far as you do, I mean, I know you're still touring, and you've got your really successful radio show. Like, what else are you gonna? Any big projects coming in, or?
Well, the radio show is just kind of growing, and people are enjoying it, and I'm really enjoying the hangout aspect of it. It's something that people say they take with them on workouts, and it's just I know a few people that's their Saturday night when they on terrestrial radio. They sit around at days of old where families sat around the radio and they just sit and listen and laugh and stuff.
Well,
but the
great.
thing I'm excited about is because of technology, like we were talking about earlier, we've got an app that's free that you can download for free. You just go to your app store and you type Daren, D-A-R-E-N. Daren has 1 R in it, and as you've heard me say a million times, it's because my mother didn't want anyone to actually find this thing. But so Daren Comedy into the search bar, and you'll see me on there, and you can download it, and you can listen to the show and take it with you and hang out, and people email me off the app, so it's just kind of a fun connecting thing that we do. And so that's been fun watching that grow, and people enjoy that more and more, and been enjoying that a lot. Yeah, that's been really cool.
Oh, that's great. Well, I will have all of this information in the show notes, and then I'll send everyone get everyone to download the app and send them to your website. So, well, Daren, man, thanks so much for taking the time out for. I know you're super busy, and I really appreciate you calling in, and we can just chit chat and all. Man, it's so good catching up. We'd love to do more stuff with you in the future. Yeah.
Well, it's a pleasure to be on your show, and it's a pleasure to be your friend. So I appreciate this time we had together, and I hope we can do it again sometime. Definitely,
sir, man. Well, I hope you have an amazing day. I'm going to get this out to all of our 3 listeners, and I'm excited that they're going to hear all this. So.
My mother will listen. She'll love it. So.
Oh, good. That's awesome. Well, thanks, Daren, man. I super appreciate you.
You bet. Appreciate you too, man. Thanks.
Okay. All right. Bye.
I hope you enjoyed that conversation with Mr. Daren Streblow. Just to remind you, check out his website at DarenStreblow.com. You'll find out lots of interesting and fun facts, as well as the Daren Streblow Comedy Show, which you can download the free app from either the iPhone or the Android store. And again, use promo code FIRSTMONTH and the number 1, all lowercase, no spaces, to get your first month for the Oily Flix app for just $1. You can go to oilyflix.com to sign up, and you can also download the app through the iPhone and Android store. That's all for the Rich Praytor podcast. I'm out.